warning before you listen. This epic is not for children, nor for the faint of heart. We retell the ancient Greek myths as they were born, unfiltered, unsoftened. Scenes of violence, curses, betrayals, and a hunger for power that shows no mercy. Given the many conflicting versions of the Titan War, the events have been rebuilt to complete the missing pieces. Here, we tell the myth as it was meant to be told. Sources and references are listed in the episode description. Chapter 66. From the Titan War. Clash of Weapons and the Fall of Time. The Return of Ember, when iron finds its maker again. 100,000 hands and a drop from the Mother of Time, forging what was never meant to be born. They weren't climbing out of the depths. They were being torn from the flesh of shame. As if the earth had chosen to gift them not redemption, but a promise, far too long delayed. With every layer of stone they passed, something was ripped from their bones, the face of their brother Gaia's, crushed under Atlas's scream, the hand that failed to stop the betrayal, and the cry they never released, still burning inside them like a volcano denied its eruption. The drop that chose their hearts wasn't a blessing, it was a second heartbeat, one that reshaped what had never been born. When it embedded itself into their chests, it said, "If you betray me, you will not die. You will walk as the dead among those who believed you were their saviors." They emerged from the deep, faces scorched, but eyes dripping with clarity that wasn't seen, it was felt in the air. The night had already died along the edges of the sky, and when the fires saw them, they didn't flare, they bowed. Brontes approached the embers and cast in the first piece of iron. It wasn't metal, but the remains of a blade no one had ever dared to forge. He said nothing, but the fire screamed. Steropes followed, then Arges, each throwing their grief into the blaze, and never looking back. By the time dawn's first paleness broke, the hammers were falling, and for the first time in thousands of years, the mountain trembled, not because someone roared, but because silence was no longer enough. The first strike wasn't a hammer, it was the announcement of something older than time finding its voice again. They came from everywhere, the Cyclopes, who had removed their armor and vanished, who had buried their tongues with their brothers in Tartarus, who believed the art of forging died with the first scream. None of them asked, "Who are you?" because the hammer answered. The old man stood at the mouth of the mountain. He didn't shout, but everyone around him went still. He raised his hand, blistered and burned, and said, "These are not lords. They are the ones who carry the guilt the gods abandoned. Gaia fed them a drop not of water, but of reckoning, and they are the ones who will drive the hammer toward what was never meant to be struck." Then he pointed at the drop pulsing in their chests and whispered, "It didn't sleep. It was waiting for this fire." 100,000 hammers were prepared. Rows upon rows of smiths and cyclopes stood, each 100 men to strike a single blow. This wasn't labor, it was ritual. Every drop of sweat burned before it hit the ground. Every heartbeat of fire waited to be swallowed by someone who would not scream. And in one corner, a hammer was set apart, not like the others. It was called the Hammer of Bone. It could only be lifted by one who had crossed through agony and stayed silent. It was the hammer for the first strike, and if it flinched, the war would delay 1,000 years. Each weapon forged was infused with a fragment of the drop, not to give it power, but to imprison within it a promise. Steropes, eyes locked on the iron, said, "We will not forge a sword. We are forging the first scream. That belongs to no name." And when the final hammer fell, and every chest exhaled as if reborn, the three stood before the fire. They said nothing. But the flame behind them blazed, as if listening to words not yet spoken. Then came the voice of the old man, not shaking the earth, but grounding it. "Prepare yourselves. The weapons have awakened, and the sky waits for the hand that will strike it without trembling." And then he whispered, to no one but himself, "Even iron does not yet know whom it will obey." This chapter of the epic has come to an end, but remember, what you've just heard is not a record of facts, but the echo of a myth, a story born from the imagination of the ancients, etched into the long memory of humankind. If this tale stirred something in you, if it opened a door to reflection or wonder, don't forget to support the channel and share the journey with those you love. And in the comments, tell us which moment in this chapter struck you the most and why. We'll meet again in the next chapter of this audio odyssey through time. Until then, farewell.